What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to Talkin Mets and Rob. How is everybody doing? As we talk on this off day for our New York Mets before they head home, the state of the New York Mets. Welcome to the channel, guys. Guys, it is absolutely despicable, embarrassing, whatever word you want to use for our New York Mets over this last a little over 2 weeks of games as they have lost 13 out of 16, just got swept by one of the worst teams in baseball in the Pittsburgh Pirates by an astronomical number, 30-4. That is just embarrassing. And this is right after getting swept prior to that game in Pittsburgh, the last game of the series, having a players only meeting and you get beat up like you did yesterday is a outright embarrassment. The state of the Mets is in turmoil. The state of the Mets are a problem. Talk about the pitching, rotation, and bullpen. We can talk about the offense, the lack of offense with runners in scoring position. Just the overall situational hitting is not good at all. And there is too many holes in this lineup. That has been the biggest problem of this New York Mets team in 2025. They went out to a great start, and that was mostly because the starting pitching and the bullpen were outstanding for the first 2 months, but that was not sustainable. For months, I've been talking about this pitching is not going to last. You got a bunch of question marks in this rotation. One, that can't stay healthy. Two, that hasn't pitched many innings in their career, and we're expecting them to do so and pitch well and give innings. You ain't going to get all of that in one bunch. And when you have too many reclamation projects, as the Mets do in this rotation, as the Mets do in this bullpen, it is bound to have most of these guys fail and not be that good. That is the major issue with this team. Yes, the lack of runners in scoring position is a huge issue. Soto under 200. Pete Alonso has been damn good, but has struggled as of late. Nimmo has been way too streaky. Lindor has been way too streaky. And when those four guys at the top of the order, 1 through 4, aren't pulling their weight and have too many streaky months in the season, now we talk about the bottom of the order. When your third baseman, who is excellent when he took over the job last year, has been a complete shell of themselves. When you had two prospects in Beatty and Acuna, who were basically gave the big opportunity with the McNeil injury to take over a job at second base, they both couldn't do it. Jeff McNeil has been fine, but has not provided what we really need, and that is a bigger bat, a better bat. And then when you talk about Alvarez at catcher, is now back in the minor leagues. You got a backup catcher in Luis Torrens, who we all love, but he's a backup catcher. He gets exposed when he plays every day. He's a very capable and fine backup catcher on a really good team. When he's your starting catcher, he gets exposed. We've seen it since he's become a starter when Alvarez got sent down. So, what are the holes for the New York Mets? What is the state of the New York Mets? We don't really have a second baseman. We really don't have a third baseman. We really don't have a center fielder. And we don't have a catcher. So, with going into the season, we were counting on Mark Vientos to basically be close or, better than what he was last year. That clearly isn't happening. Second base was probably going to be Jeff McNeil, either Brett Beatty or Acuna being one of those utility guys on the bench. Both of those guys got opportunities. Both of them failed at those opportunities while McNeil was hurt. McNeil came back and took over the job because it's not like he was great. He was just better than everybody else that was taking over second base in Acuna and Beatty. You got Mauricio here, not really doing much. And, he's just coming back from injury. There's a lot of time for him, and that's understandable, but you're trying to win ball games here. These guys have all failed. And then you talk about center field. You bring in Jose Siri, who is a defensive guy mostly, not really great with the bat. He was supposed to bring a little bit more power to this lineup, but he got hurt. That happens. Can't do anything about it. But Tyrone Taylor, who was brought here to be a fourth outfielder, is now your starting center fielder. And he gets exposed because he's not really a starting center fielder on a really good team. He is a fourth outfielder with Stearns and the Mets brought him in here to be, And because the failings of data, because the injury to Siri, Tyron Taylor, and kudos to him, he stepped up for the most part, but he's not an everyday player. He's really not. He's really not that good with the bat. He's great defensively, but when your offense 5 through 9 is a problem, well, why do you think there is? Because Luis Torrens, backup. Tyron Taylor, fourth outfielder. Your third base is in turmoil. Your second base is in turmoil. And then to put the icing on the cake, your 1 through 4 hasn't really done the job as a combined effort with runners in scoring position and be consistent with their offense. They've been, Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to their offensive capabilities, where they should have been so much better. But we can blame the top of the lineup. That's absolutely a problem. They need to be better. But again, we've talked about this for a while. Lindor, Nimmo, Alonso, and McNeil have been here since 2001 together. They've consistently been extremely too streaky, hardly played well together at the same time. And then throwing Juan Soto into the mix, he basically followed the leader in this aspect. But most of those guys have had problems just like they had this year with runners in scoring position. They've struggled where they've been a no-show for a month, then they'll get hot for a month, and then they'll get cold again. That has been their MO. So the guys who are a mainstay in this lineup, in Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor, and McNeil, have been a major reason why this team has failed. And Juan Soto hasn't been good either. That is the biggest problem overall. And we haven't even got to the pitching. So the lack of runners in scoring position, the situational hitting is terrible. The lineup as a whole isn't very good. We have too many holes when we were supposed to have answers at a lot of these positions. Center field, still a question mark coming into the season. I think we all can agree that Siri and Tyron Taylor doesn't get the fan base excited. But third base was supposed to be Vientos, no doubt about it. How much confidence did everybody have in Mark Vientos? Well, that confidence is wavering, especially when I was in Pittsburgh and I heard the fans that I was sitting around talking about Mark Vientos. Not a very fan favorite, nor should he be, by the way. Great last year, but we talk about one-hit wonders in sports. Why is it not okay to talk about one-hit wonders when it comes to Mark Vientos? Seems like that's kind of an enigma and kind of gets people upset, especially Met fans. It is a possibility. And he hasn't been the same. You can talk about injuries, but he's doing the same thing he was doing prior to his injury. Swinging at those sliders well outside the zone, taking terrible at-bats. That has been Mark Vientos this year. Is that going to change? Who knows? Alvarez was supposed to be a guy that was supposed to provide the power. I never thought he was going to be an average guy. But we were expecting him to be a 25 home run guy, along with Vientos with another 25 home run guy. I mean, the Mets are supposed to have 4 or 5 guys in this lineup that can hit 30 home runs or close to it. And that's a problem. We were talking about in the beginning of the season how deep this lineup can be, 1 through 7 with Vientos, with Alvarez. And we're not even talking about what would happen at second base, no matter who would have got the job. The biggest problem here is that collectively as a roster, they're not that good. We have to say what is the truth here. They're not that good. This rotation, I never trusted, healthy or not. Too many reclamation projects, too many question marks, too many guys that most teams would not trust to be at the top of this rotation. I'm sorry, guys. I love Sean Manaea, but when you give $20 million to a guy who did it once again last year and had to change his mechanics just to do so, and you expect him not to get hurt, you're fooling yourself. You could have probably spent that $20 million on a better pitcher. And I'm not saying that guy wouldn't have gotten hurt too, but too many people act like the risk is not as high because you didn't pay much to these starters in most of this rotation. So it's okay for them to get hurt if you spend less money on them. But when they come back, are they good enough? Healthy? I don't believe they are. Clay Holmes looks gassed. David Peterson, to be quite honest with you guys, I think he's gassed. I think a guy who hasn't pitched that many innings in ever in his career, when he threw 170 last year, coming off of hip surgery, what did you expect? He was going to be gassed. I think Peterson is gassed. You got Holmes gassed. You got Griffin Cannon now hurt, who was a guy that could actually give you innings because he's proved it in his career. Now, was he still going to be very good? Who knows? But he's done for the season, out of the rotation. You got Frankie Montas. One day's good, one day's bad. That's what you're going to get from Frankie Montas. Kodai Senga, hurt once again. What was the biggest concern with Kodai Senga coming out of Japan? He was consistently injured in Japan. So what did you expect you were going to get? A healthy Kodai Senga through this contract? No. So fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Because that is the rotation for the New York Mets. Sean Manaea, until he pitches a game for the New York Mets, why do I expect him to come back? I just don't. Kodai Senga is a very slow healer. Very slow healer. And on top of that, when he finally is quote-unquote healthy, he needs everything to go right mechanically to get back onto the mound, and there's no guarantee he's going to pitch well. So who do you trust in this rotation? I brought up this question about 2 weeks ago. Game 7, pick a playoff series, NLDS, NLCS, World Series. Who do you trust in Game 7 of a World Series where you have the utmost confidence in? Not saying that they're going to be on the mound and be great and win you a ball game. But who do you have confidence in on the mound Game 7 of any playoff series? Too many people have too many different names to pick. Some say Peterson, some say Manaea, some say this guy, some say Griffin Cannon before he got hurt. You know why there's so many options? Because they're not that good. They're not good enough. So when it comes to the state of the Mets, there's too many holes to fill at the deadline. You know why? Because David Stearns put a team together in the offseason that wasn't completed. I'm not saying you got to fill every single hole in the offseason. You can always leave one, possibly two, where you can get some at the deadline. But when you have too many question marks going into the season with the rotation, with the roster, and now you got about 4 or 5 holes you have to fill or try to fill at the deadline, which is almost impossible because there's no guarantee that David Stearns is going to trade any of these pitching prospects, because when you don't spend money on the rotation, you're heavily relying on the Sproats, on the Tongs, on the McLeans, Tidwell. These guys have to work out to have that plan, that business model, that baseball plan of not spending money in this rotation. You need at least 2 of those guys to be big, to be top line starters, not third starters or fourth starters. The Mets have enough of them. So if Sproat, McLean, Tong, Tidwell, if 2 out of the 4 aren't top line starters, you're in a major problem with this organization. David Stearns' model when it comes to pitching is not spend a lot of money in a lot of years on starting pitching because it is too risky, obviously. But when was the last time you go the cheap route with pitching and have all these reclamation projects and make and win a World Series? Can you name me a team? Just go back 5 years. You want to go back 10 years? Doesn't happen. Might find your way into the playoffs, but ultimately that reclamation, those question marks in those rotation doesn't cut it. Does not cut it. So what do we need at the deadline with the New York Mets? Well, a second baseman. Maybe you need a center fielder. You need a bat. What about the rotation? What are you going to get? Another middle of the rotation arm that we have 20 of? It's not good enough. This is the offseason. This is the trade deadline that the New York Mets need to be an all-in type of team. You don't sign Juan Soto for $750 million. You don't sign Pete Alonso for $30 million with the possibility of him opting out and not being a Met after this year. You don't give all that money to those 2 guys and don't go all in when you're a top 5 team in baseball, or at least you're considered a top 5 team in baseball. Because you know the Phillies are going to go for it. You know the Dodgers are going to go for it. The Padres, the Cubs, all these teams are going to go for it at the deadline. You can't be the odd man out and expect to win. There's too many holes to expect to win. There is nobody that should be untouchable in this farm system. If you're a fan that says any of these guys are untouchable, you have to question yourself in the mirror and say, do I want this team to win? Because if you do, it shouldn't be a question. Nobody should stop you from getting the players you need. If you want Duran because he's under control, he's a really good bat. He fills a hole for this team. You go get him by any means necessary. Because that could be the difference between winning the World Series and not. Because if there's another team out there that needs a center fielder, that needs a bat, and gets him, and that's the team you face in the playoffs, then who failed? Is it Stearns? Or is it just too much for prospects? Now, I'm not saying to go get Durant. There's Mullins out there. There's Luis Robert. There's many options out there. But there should be no reason why the Mets don't get top 3 players at the deadline at certain positions that is of need. Everybody's talking about a high leverage reliever. Fine. Everybody needs one of those. Go get one. But when you need a center fielder, when you need a top rotation arm, because you don't need another third or fourth starter in this rotation, you don't need another fourth outfielder in center field. You need to make 2 big moves at the minimum, along with a high leverage reliever. So 3 basically top moves you need to make at this deadline. Do I believe David Stearns will? I don't know. I don't know how much he is willing to mess with this farm system to make this team better. I don't care about 2026. I don't care about 2027. You know what that is? They're all question marks. We have no idea. We don't know who can get hurt. We don't know how the offseason is going to look. We don't know how these guys, these young kids are going to perform. Give me the player that has been there and done that before. If this player that you can get at the deadline helps this team now, and if you can get a guy under control to help you in the future, great. But it shouldn't stop you from getting anybody. The Mets should be in on every top deadline target at this deadline, no matter who it is. Obviously, it's got to fit your need. Center field, rotation, bullpen. You need at least 2 out of the 3. You got to make a decision here. And to be this passive aggressive and wait and approach when you're a month from the deadline and your team is spiraling out of control, losing 13 out of 16, you should do something now. And I'm not saying that anybody might be available. We keep on hearing about Luis Robert. Go get him. Now, I don't like that move. I don't think Robert is any good. I don't think change of scenery is going to change his problems at the plate overall. But if you like him and you think you can help him and fix him, go get him. He's clearly available. The White Sox aren't going to wait to the deadline. They're out of it. Go look at teams like the Rockies, the Marlins, the White Sox, the Pirates. All those teams are willing to trade these guys now. You just got to be aggressive. Why wait? This team needs help. This rotation is embarrassing. They're falling apart. This bullpen that was so good is clearly overused. As I stated 2 months ago, they're going to be overused, and before the deadline and before the All-Star break, they're going to have problems, and clearly they are. The state of the New York Mets, it's clearly rock bottom, Mets fans. Something has to change. Moves have to be made. Make a move. Be aggressive. This team needs help. Where are the reinforcements in this rotation? We have no idea if Manaea is coming back. We have no idea when Kodai Senga is coming back. This lineup needs help. This rotation needs help. This bullpen needs help. It's about time David Stearns gets off his ass and makes an aggressive move. There's nothing stopping him. If anything is going to make you hesitant of making a move, then maybe you shouldn't be the GM because you get too much praise for the lack of winning. Last year was a fluke. Last year wasn't expected. Go figure. Another Mets run in the playoffs was an unexpected year where David Stearns did everything possible to not do enough in the offseason and the deadline because it was a transition year. It was an evaluation year of our farm system. So you didn't make moves because you were evaluating the farm system still. It was an unexpected year. You did a shit job and an unexpected, weird moves in the offseason last year just to make a possibility of a lot of guys who are expiring contracts that if the Mets did bad, you were going to trade them. So you set up yourself to trade most of these guys are on expiring contracts. But when they showed you that they were coming back and winning and becoming a team, you half-assed another deadline because you were evaluating the farm system. What's your excuse this year? What's it? Why are you evaluating? You know who's in this farm system. They've been in the farm system a couple of years now. Everybody is basically double A, triple A where you probably need them to be. It's up to you to make these deals. Get the job done. The state of the Mets is all up to David Stearns. Cohen would add money to this payroll if it's going to make this team better. It's up to Stearns to put on the big boy pants and make the moves necessary to fill these holes. Don't tell me Manaea is like a deadline deal. It's not. Because you're going to treat him with kid gloves for 2 months. Probably not going to go past 5 innings. Going to watch his pitch count. What excites me about that? Kodai Senga, who the hell knows when he's coming back, the slow healer he is. David Stearns, pick up the big boy pants and actually do your job. No more reclamation projects. Don't give me a fourth starter, a fourth guy in this rotation, a middle of the road type pitcher in this rotation. You want a high leverage arm? Go get him in the bullpen. You want an impact bat? We have multiple holes in this lineup. Find a position, go get the best bat on the market. There's no more excuses. I'm sick and tired of unexpected years for Mets playoff runs. I want to go into a season expecting to win, which is this year, and do what's ever possible to make that happen. If the player doesn't perform and you got 2 out of the 3 top guys at the deadline and they didn't do their job, I'll blame the players. I'm not going to blame you. But when you don't do it and they end up on other teams, then I'll blame David Stearns. It's time for David Stearns to put the big boy pants on. You're in a big market. You got top prospects. You got the money. There is no more excuses. Thank you for watching the State of the Mets video, guys. Let's go Mets. Enjoy the rest of your off day. Mets Talk Live, 6 p.m. tonight, guys. Let's go Mets.